All right, we are live. Monday market update presented by UMortgage. For those who don't notice or join us for the first time, Sean Grapevine, our normal host, is out in Hawaii enjoying some family time and some vacation. So today I'm joined by somebody I love and respect, Mr. Jay Bunte. How you doing, Jay?
How you doing, Matt? And I did not know Sean was in Hawaii. I didn't get the memo.
Yeah, I know. I sick invite, right? Didn't invite either one of us for the record, but we'll save that for next time, Sean. When you watch the replay, we would have liked at least 4 weeks heads up. We could have planned. We could have bought some tickets for the trip to Hawaii. We could have made it as a company, right? We could have held a retreat. Today we are going to talk about a bunch of different stuff. We're going to talk about the direction of mortgage interest rates and all that. But before we get into all the nerdy analytics, I just want to talk about, you and your weekend, Jay. It's been a while since we've caught up. How was the weekend, brother?
I live in Texas, for those that don't know, and it is like summer's knocking on the door, and I don't think I'm quite ready for it. There's some people that love it, but man, 92 plus humidity, and you're like, wow, okay, we're about to be in this for like the next 3 or 4 months. So, but it was good. It was a pretty calm weekend, the weekend before Memorial Day. It was good.
Cool, man. Yeah. I last time I was out there, I realized I don't think I'm built for the humidity you guys have out there, dude. Like in California, we can get to 110 degrees, but it's dry. My last trip, the NXT office, while I'm inside, it's like 64 degrees and I'm freezing. And then I go outside, it's like in a sauna. So it was quite the contrast. Maybe that's hot and cold therapy that you guys do to keep so fit out there, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Cool. Yeah, we actually we had a nice sunny day out in California yesterday. My kiddos' Major League Baseball team, we held the end of year party at my house. So about 85 degrees, all the kids swimming, having a good time. And thankfully we got through. Like, I don't know if anybody on here knows much about 11-year-olds, but they have a lot of energy. And so like we had a big inflatable slide. Kids are jumping from the back, from the side, in the pool, doing flips. Like it was madness. And all I thought about was like, I've got a pretty big umbrella policy on my insurance. So if anybody gets hurt while they're at my house, I think I'm covered. But nobody got hurt, man. It was fun. We got to celebrate a fun Marlins Major League Baseball team. So
speaking of sports, if you're a Dallas-Fort Worth sports fan, you had a great weekend, right? Stars and the Mavs.
Yeah.
Both through.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. We actually, while we're watching the party, we watched Minnesota Timberwolves win their series. So I think it's Wednesday, game 1 of Dallas Mavericks and Minnesota Timberwolves. Western Conference Finals. I'm a huge basketball guy, so like that's going to be a really, really good series. It's hard for me to pick who I want to win because like both those teams are fun to watch. I love Anthony Edwards. I love Luka Doncic. Like both of them, and like Kyrie. Like you guys are fun to watch. That Dallas team. Whoever wins that Western Conference Finals is definitely who I'm rooting for against Pacers or Celtics, which is probably Celtics. So, we got a couple really good weeks of basketball ahead of us for anybody who's NBA fan. We also have a couple exciting weeks in mortgage. I say that and I laugh. We we're continuing to wait on the Fed, in my opinion, to do anything besides kind of stand pat like they've been doing with the Fed funds rate. And I think finally, I was listening to something this morning, Jay. This is a good transition into the mortgage stuff. I finally heard them say that it sounds like a hike is off the table, because some of me and Sean's conversations, when you go to like the Fed Watch tool, and this Fed Watch tool, for anybody listening, is just like, what % chance is it that in this next Fed meeting, the Fed cuts by 25 basis points? What's the % chance that they don't do anything? And for a long time, you've got the chance of a cut and you've got the chance of nothing. There was actually, over these last couple months, a small chance that they were going to hike rates. And they're like, inflation's not done. We still keep getting data that inflation's here to stay.
Yeah,
and so
that was April. April was brutal.
Right. And now if I pop into that, I see, for June, which is around the corner, 96% chance that they don't do anything. They just hold the Fed funds rate where it's at, 4% chance that they cut. In July, we get to, 22%. And how I read this, I'm pretty sure I'm right. When you look at like September, November, and December, and you see, like, looking at September, for example, 50% chance that the Fed funds rate is 25 basis points lower. That means that sometime in the next 3 meetings, there's going to be one cut. It's not like that meeting, there's a prediction. And actually, when I think about it and look at it and use my brain, it has to be like that, because there's also a % chance that there's, 50 basis points down, or even 75. That's pretty wild. 0.4. So 1 in 250 chance, for anybody who's a math nerd like me, that we're 75 basis points lower 3 meetings from now. That's a bet I wouldn't bet. Don't bet that unless you like betting really long odds, like the Dallas Cowboys to win the Super Bowl next year. Oh man, I couldn't resist, dude. Oh
man, I loved all the memes on social media about the Rangers, Stars, Mavs, Cowboys. Like 1995 was the last time we did anything significant. But they are the most valuable sports organization in the world.
Yeah. So, I mean, they got legacy working for them.
Moral victory there.
Be back, I'm sure, man. It's a great organization. What I'd love to pose as a question to you, Jay, and I think people are curious. We're all in different markets, and you might be listening to this, and you're in Pittsburgh. You might be listening to this from Florida or Tennessee or Washington. Rates have come down a little bit. They're hovering right around 7%. Me and you both looked at the chart. We couldn't figure out which week it was, because last week, current versus last Monday, they look pretty similar. And we'll just call it 7% for argument's sake. As rates trickle down a little bit, I think a lot of people that I listen to are saying that's going to generate a bunch of demand. Have you seen, since we got near those 7.5% kind of highs over the last few months and came off of it, more uptick in demand on your side?
Yeah, and it's hard to determine, like, is this rate based? Is it summer based, where people generally like to move now that the kids are out of school type of deal? But I will say, I'm licensed in 40 something states, so I kind of see loans all over the U.S. Yes, there's some areas where houses have sat on the market for a little bit, but then take this weekend, for example, Chicago, we made an offer. The day it went on, there was 13 offers already the same day. And we offered, significantly over. Northern Virginia, Alexandria area, not uncommon for it to go significantly over asking price. And these are at 7% interest rates. So you can, I think it's a very reasonable assumption to say, wow, when rates actually do drop and it's bringing in more buyers into the buyer pool, what is that going to do?
Right. Yeah. Because I'm sure, you run a great business, have dozens of people, I'm sure, pre-approved and at different stages. Tell me about your pre-approved pipeline of maybe people that aren't super motivated and putting in offers this weekend, but, rates trickle down 0.25%, 0.5%, like they jump in relatively quickly. Do you have kind of some fence sitters at the moment?
Yeah. And a big conversation on that, and I know you're a math guy, is like when we run seller concessions, right? So we say, okay, because this house has been sitting for a while and that's maybe the seller's a little desperate, they're giving X amount of seller concessions. And when you start doing the math and showing them, hey, it actually makes more sense for you to give them their asking price and get seller concessions rather than lowball them on the price, right? If the seller is the same, their monthly payment will actually be less if we use those seller concessions to buy down the interest rate. And they just they can't wait, wait a minute, how is offering $10,000 more, but yet it yields me a lower monthly payment? And we break down the math. They're like, wow, I had no idea. And so we talk about that. And when rates start to drop and if houses start moving off the market faster, you're going to lose that leverage to ask for seller concessions. And so that's been a big talking point right now.
Yeah, I see that myself. And so I, agree wholeheartedly. For anybody watching, if you're a consumer, if you're a real estate agent, realize that like the window where you've got some leverage, nobody knows how long it's going to be open. I can remember like yesterday, Jay, when rates kind of peaked in Q4 of 22. And I told people like, go, now's the time. You see an 8% interest rate and you want to run, you got to charge into this storm because sellers are more freaked out than you are. And your ability to go in there and write an offer that makes sense for you and have a lot of the leverage. I'm going to pay you X amount and I need 15,000 in credit. If that doesn't work for you, best of luck to you. You've already been on the market for 44 days. And so the majority of the best deals that I saw clients get were in these markets where rates were the highest. And so me and you could probably say it till we're blue in the face, and some people will have to learn the lesson themselves. Like, you wait until rates come down. It's not a better position for you to be in as a buyer when you're competing against more offers. You're less likely to get seller concessions because, to your point, like that opens a lot of people's eyes when you talk about like the structure of your mortgage matters. If you pay $480 with $10,000 in credit and we do a 1.0 buy down and pay for some of your closing costs or whatever the case may be, that versus paying $470, it's not even close, and people who are worried about affordability and their monthly payment matters. If I show you, yeah, you'd save $38 a month paying $10,000 less, but you'd pay $122 a month less by structuring the mortgage with a temporary buy down or a permanent buy down. Those are the type of things that, I know you're a high level loan officer, so I know you're coaching those strategies up into people. What else are you using to help people get offers accepted? Because I know, is it relatively competitive in most of the markets you're working in Texas?
It's relatively, yeah. Where we've seen a little bit of wiggle room is some of the new construction neighborhoods where a builder just like, man, they just made them real quick. And now there's, 20, 30, 40 of them in the neighborhood just kind of sitting there. And so that's where we've seen some leverage as far as reduce, maybe you do a hybrid. Maybe you do ask for a lower purchase price and seller concessions. At the end of the day, I tell the buyers that, hey, we'll structure it whichever way you want, but you have to be comfortable. As long as you're comfortable with this payment, then, as long as you are, then we'll go see how aggressive we can get with the offer. But overall, like we are seeing, especially in more mature neighborhoods to where maybe the houses don't go for sale very often, man, those are tough. Those are tough when a house once every 3 or 4 months comes on the market. Those are some tough offers right there.
Right.
Regardless of rates.
Yeah, I got buyers that are like, oh, the house is beautiful, it's dialed in. I'm like, yeah, you're not the only one that thinks that. And the fact that, like you said, maybe 4 or 5 get sold in this pocket of this zip code, every year means that when it shows up, you're not going to be the only one rooting for it. I've got a question for you, Jay, because it's not every day I get to talk to a high-level loan officer like yourself. And like, it's cool to hear how you think about it, and you're thinking about how to structure stuff for people to win. Something that I've run across recently, so I'm really curious because as you talk, I can hear we think alike, and like we're trying to structure what makes sense for the buyer, which every buyer is different. Every buyer has different goals. Also, when they're shopping, every home is going to be different. This one's nice and it's going to sell fast, and you got to bid higher. This one's been sitting for 33 days. You can offer with concessions and structure mortgage. Like, how do you talk to the client, pre-approve the client, kind of game plan mortgage structure, not knowing what's going to be available out there? Because quite honestly, like this house, you can get 15,000 in credits. This house, you can't get any, and you've got to offer 20,000 above ask because it's, like you said, in the desirable neighborhood, not a lot of inventory. How do you go about that? Because that's something that I think I'm still trying to figure out how to game plan with uncertainty around like what you're going to be able to get from a concession standpoint, or, going house to house, there being a different level of kind of demand and necessity to offer higher.
Yeah. And every loan officer is different. I'm generally more conservative, and I will pre-approve at the absolute most aggressive, like conservative approach, like meaning no seller concessions, over asking price, et cetera, if we have to go. And if we feel comfortable with the numbers, at least from a pre-approval perspective, then I'll go back to the client and be like, okay, you're going to qualify even if you get nothing, right? And high rate and nothing, like you're going to qualify. Now, whether or not you want to move forward, that's another conversation. But that way, it just puts their mind at ease. Like, and if I ever have one of those scenarios where like maybe the borrower doesn't, they got great credit, right? And a lot of my veterans are like this, it's the younger ones, they got great credit. They got stable income, obviously LES income, but maybe they just don't have a lot in savings, right? And so if we at least have that conversation with the sellers, hey, here's the deal. We need the 3% in seller concessions to cover our closing costs or whatever it is. Otherwise, if we get that, we're going to fly through underwriting. And so having those conversations, but just being honest with the agent, be like, dude, do not offer no concessions. We need it in order to get this deal. But for most of the time, it's like, hey, these would be nice to have, but we're not like solely relying on it and say, like, if we don't get it, we're hooped type of deal.
Right. Yeah. I'm thinking about an offer that went out yesterday where I had a great conversation with a client who's representing himself. He is a real estate agent. And he said, I'm going to do 440 with 20,000 in credit on an FHA deal. And, part of our conversation was like, I really only need 12. And I said, cool, ask for 20. What's the worst they could say? No. They've been on the market for 40 days. And if we get 20, there's not 20,000 in closing costs. So we're going to have to structure some sort of temporary buy down. So, 1.0, 2.1 and cover the closing costs. If it goes down to only getting 12, maybe we don't do the temporary buy down and we just cover the closing costs, because 12 is about what's going to cost to prepay taxes and insurance and escrow fees and all that. And so I like that approach. And I think when I think about it out loud, Jay, it's kind of what I'm working with clients on is, you're going to qualify and you can ask for this. If you don't get it, it's not going to make or break the deal. But from a buyer's perspective, in some markets, in some circumstances, they've got a little bit of leverage they can ask, but not always the case. I think the piece of advice I want to give anybody listening, real estate agent or consumer, make sure these conversations are happening and make sure that realtor and loan officer are communicating. Because sometimes lines get crossed or there's not communication. You're like, oh, wait, we're trying to structure a deal with credit because, we're trying to hold on to the assets this person has, and you wrote an offer with no credit. Where if realtor and loan officer are communicating, 435 with 10K in credit, 425 with none, it might make zero difference to the seller. They're going to go with either one. So let's structure the one that makes the most sense for the buyer.
Well, the communication is crucial, and that's why working with agents that know what they're doing and have good relationships and are experts is so clutch. Because it's funny, like take your example, the 440 asking price. Sometimes I've seen sellers be like, hey, we'll give you 440, but we want 20K in seller concessions. And they're like, no, I ain't giving you 20K. And then we go, okay, cool. We'll just offer you 420. And they're like, yeah, I'll take that. Like, it's the same thing, bro. You're netting the same thing. And like, you just don't realize it. And so just being able to, like I said, to have agents that can communicate well is crucial.
Yeah. And that's the thing too, is great agents call, communicate, and write something that makes sense and that makes, the seller and that side happy. And to your point, I've had it plenty of times where they're stuck on a price. Like, I need to get 400,000 for it. And if you wrote it 385, they wouldn't even consider it. But you write 400 with 15,000 in credit and they snap accept it because that 400 number is the one that they want.
Yep.
Not realizing that 400 minus 15 also equals 385. But that's why having great professionals on your side helps, because at the end of the day, real estate is a people game. It's a relationship thing. And I'm seeing my buyers win when they have an agent who's willing, able to communicate at a high level, and they just reach out. And before offers even go out, there's been multiple discussions. Oh, your seller, 29 days of rent back would really, really be helpful because of what they've got planned. And, they really need it to close in 18 days, whatever the case may be. Like, if you're not communicating, getting that information and just writing a blind offer, you really don't have any chance. I heard something from an agent that I work with a lot, Jay, and I think this is really valuable because we get out there and we're like, this house got 8 offers, 10 offers. This agent has had 1,000 listings said, Matt, don't be intimidated by that, because I can tell you with absolute certainty with 1,000, listings as data, that 2 or 3 of those actually have a chance. 7 out of 10 offers that I get, I never talk to the buy side agent. They wrote a blind offer without ever communicating at all, or some level of that, to where there's only 2 or 3 good conversation, asking what's important to the seller, talking about, what might possibly be a win-win. And if, the buyer wants the house and they can afford it, they're pre-approved. How do we write this where the seller feels good? Whether that's closing time frame, whether it's rent back, whether it's, concessions or no concessions. And so, I think I keep reminding myself repeatedly, Jay, like how consumers might not know how important it is. And I'm not just tooting, a lender's horn about structuring the mortgage. Like, it's vitally important you work with a real estate agent who communicates well and understands the market, writing offers, and those things.
From getting an offer accepted, I would say they are the most important part of that party, right? And it's crazy. I think if any realtors are watching that is like the biggest pro tip, and most of them do this, but if you're not, is reaching out to the listing agent and say, hey, what do your sellers value? What are they looking for? What's important to them? And knowing that when you make your offer, because you're exactly right. We've actually haven't been the highest offer, but we offered exactly what the sellers wanted and were looking for. And it met my buyers' criteria. And we offered that. And they were like, cool, show me where to sign.
Yeah, right? For sure. Cool, man. Well, I think we're going to wrap this up. I just realized that next weekend is a holiday weekend. So I'm almost certain we're gonna be off from the Monday market update with UMortgage. But that following week, the first week of June, we're going to be about a week out from the June 12th Fed meeting. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about, the direction of interest rates. It was great talking to you about some real life scenarios and out there in the battlefield. Because that's the thing too, is I hear a lot of stuff, Jay, from people who are in real estate or in mortgage. I like talking to guys like you that's like, you've got agents out there submitting offers every day. You're talking to clients every single day. This is like real world experience. So thanks so much for filling in last minute while Sean's out there sipping Mai Tais, whatever he's doing and why.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I obviously will talk all day, especially around VA loan seller concession strategies. And so I appreciate Matt. I love talking with you as well. And this was a nice change of pace rather than talking about rates, because rates have been kind of flat. They're expected to be kind of flat over the next couple of weeks, like you said, until the first week or 2 of June. So we can talk about something else for a little bit.
Right. Yeah. And no matter what rates do, I always tell people that the timing is when it's right for you. And then you go out and buy, and you work with a high level professional like Jay, a great real estate agent, to structure a deal that makes sense for you based on how long you're going to be in the home and whatnot. And, me and you could go on for hours about structuring offers, temporary buy downs, the fact that rates are going to be higher for longer, but we'll save that for a future episode. Thanks for joining me, brother. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Matt.
All right. See ya.